Your life at every level of living under Nazi occupation. Moment 1. The cue. You begin with bread, not politics. That is how it enters the body. In the cold before sunrise, you stand in a line that moves only when someone in uniform decides movement is allowed. Your toes go numb inside damp boots. The woman ahead of you keeps adjusting the scarf at her throat as if neatness still matters. Behind you, a man coughs into his sleeve and no one turns around. Everyone has learned that looking too directly is a kind of involvement. You tell yourself this is temporary, because temporary things are easier to carry. New rules, new stamps, new flags. A city can bend without breaking. That is what you say at home, while your wife cuts the loaf smaller than yesterday and acts as if the slices are the same. Your son notices first. He licks the knife when she turns away. When the patrol passes, you keep your eyes low, but not too low. You have already learned that fear has to be performed in the correct amount. Too little is insolence, too much is memory. You get your ration, fold it into your coat, and decide not to buy from the boy selling extra potatoes in the alley. It feels prudent. It is only the first of many cautious decisions that leave you hungry. Moment 2. The office. At first, your work seems cleaner than the street. Paper, ink, ledgers, forms. You sit at a municipal desk under a portrait that did not hang there last year. The radiator stays cold until noon. Your fingers ache each time you straighten them. People come to your window with marriage certificates, residency requests, work permits, petitions written in careful hands. Their documents smell of wool, soap, and pockets carried too close to the body. You tell yourself you are not choosing anything. You are only filing what arrives, only copying names, only directing them to another room when the form is incomplete, the signature missing, the ancestry unclear. It sounds innocent when you think it in that order, but occupation teaches you that the quiet rooms are the ones that last. Soldiers bark in the street, clerks erase you more slowly. A neighbor from your building comes to the window asking for amended papers for her sister's child. She speaks too softly. You pretend not to recognize her. That is your first real compromise. Not the refusal itself, but how natural your face remains while you do it. At dinner, your wife asks why you washed your hands twice. You say the office smells bad. You do not say that one of the forms you stamped today will send a man east for labor or prison or somewhere people stop naming directly. You sleep badly anyway. In the morning, you go back on time. Moment 3. The wall. By then, the city is divided by more than fear. Streets close. Windows disappear behind brick. Certain people vanish from certain pavements, then from shops, then from speech. You have a pass, which makes movement feel like virtue when it is really only classification. You cross where others cannot. That is how shame begins under occupation. Not with heroism withheld, but with access. One afternoon, your wife's cousin arrives without warning, wet at the hem, carrying a little girl who has been trained not to cry. The child's hair has been cut badly. Her new name is written on a folded scrap in your cousin's pocket, and the paper is already soft from being touched too often. He needs a baptism record, old enough to look unremarkable, clean enough to survive inspection. Your throat dries before you answer. You ask practical questions to delay the moral one. Birth date, parish, district. Your son watches from the doorway, not understanding the words, but understanding the tone. Children always hear the change before they know the danger. You do it because refusing now would make everything you have already done impossible to live with. You stay late at the office, forge the entry into an older ledger, press the seal harder than necessary because your hand is shaking. On the walk home, every set of boots behind you sounds like recognition. You tell yourself the paper will save her. What you really mean is that paper still feels like something you can control. Moment 4. Inside the apartment. This is the part where history leaves the street and enters your house. A German sergeant is assigned a room in your building, then your floor, then your apartment for 2 nights that become 3 weeks. His shaving kit sits beside your wash basin. His damp overcoat drips onto the mat your wife once beat clean every Sunday. He is not theatrical. That makes him worse. He eats what is placed before him, thanks your wife in poor Polish, and notices everything. You begin living by sound. The stairwell, the knock pattern, the pause outside doors, the child in the next apartment who has forgotten how to laugh quietly. The little girl you are hiding does not stay with you all the time, only when movement is impossible, which somehow makes it more dangerous. A permanent secret becomes routine, an intermittent one becomes panic. Your wife changes first, not in loyalty, in temperature. Her voice becomes flatter, more efficient. She stops asking what you think and starts asking what is necessary. One night the sergeant mentions records, missing entries, duplicate seals. He says it casually, mouth full, and your stomach empties itself of appetite in a single second. You keep chewing anyway because stopping would be an answer. Instead of burning the extra stamp hidden behind the flour tin, you keep it one more night. You call that caution. It is already fear with paperwork attached. Moment 5. The cellar. Then the city rises, and for a moment the occupation looks mortal. Gunfire cracks from streets that had only known boots and whistles. Boys who still look unfinished carry rifles that seem older than they are. Barricades bloom out of furniture, tram rails, doors ripped from hinges. You want to believe this is the turn. Everyone wants one clean turn. But by then, belief is a dangerous luxury. Shelling begins. Water fails. The building shakes dust from the ceiling into your soup. Your son no longer asks when normal life is coming back. He asks whether the soldiers downstairs are ours or theirs, and you hate the question because the answer changes by the hour. You move between apartment and cellar carrying blankets, a saucepan, the forged papers, a crust wrapped in cloth. The little girl has developed a cough you cannot silence. Each trip upstairs is a negotiation with chance. You decide to stay one more night because leaving in daylight feels suicidal, and leaving at dawn feels smarter. Occupation has trained you to worship postponement. Sometimes delay is how people survive. Sometimes it is how they get buried where they stood. When the fire takes the upper floors, it comes with a sound less like burning than breathing. The walls sweat heat. Plaster falls into your hair and sticks to your neck. Someone screams for water long after water has stopped existing here. Historical collapse. The fall is the clean part. After the uprising is crushed, the city is processed. That is the Nazi talent. Even ruin is organized. You are driven out with the others, hands up, coughing black dust, stepping over glass that used to be windows and plates and framed photographs. Smoke settles on your tongue like grease. The little girl is no longer with you. She disappeared in the transfer between cellar and street, in the hour when buildings burned and names stopped attaching to bodies. At the transit camp, you stand in another line. Of course it becomes a line again. Men to one side, women to another. Old people folding in on themselves because sitting down means not rising fast enough when ordered. A guard flips through your papers. Your office pass is worthless now. Your usefulness has expired with the district that proved it. You are searched, counted, redirected. That is all collapses from up close. Not one grand ending, but the final administrative confirmation that your life belongs elsewhere now. Existential epilogue. You survive, which turns out to be a smaller word than you expected. Afterward, ordinary things remain damaged. You still wake before dawn even when there is no siren, no cue, no knock on the door. When someone enters a room behind you, your shoulders lift before you can stop them. You keep documents wrapped in cloth dry near your body, as if paper were food. When your wife cuts bread, you watch the thickness of each slice without meaning to. Your son no longer asks careless questions. That may be the worst inheritance of all. You tell yourself you did what was necessary. Some days that sentence feels true enough to speak. Other days it sounds like a clerk's version of prayer. Repetitive, procedural, designed to get a trembling man through one more hour inside a life he cannot fully defend. Wars end cleanly on maps. Occupation does not. It stays in your habits, in the way you lower your voice before names, in how fast you hide small things, in the shame of remembering which parts of the machine felt normal by the end. And sometimes, with no warning, your hand moves across a table as if reaching for a stamp that is no longer there.